हरे कृष्ण। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिने नमः। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणुचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादिपश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। This is a very important canto. It has many things that are explained. Seventh chapter is very important, which we just completed. Why it is important? Because the questions are asked. By knowing the questions, we know what will the content of the book. Any book you want to understand, you should know what are the questions, what are the points that are discussed. So by knowing the questions, we know what is the content. So all the questions which are asked, we'll just do a revision of what Vidra's questions, which will help us to get an overview of the discussions. Of course, till fifth canto, many things are discussed, and this is a very nice way of understanding. So here, just a small revision of questions only. This starts actually. Yeah, so many questions. We'll just do a revision and try to remember as many as possible. It's very nice. The first he glorifies Maitreya Muni. Then he asks, "O powerful sage, my lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity has now been removed." So this is actually, he asks three questions in the beginning about how the Lord is connected to this material world, how Paramatma is there, and how the living entity is illusion. So with that he gives a nice analogy of how head cut and the person is seeing his own head cut and other things. That analogies are there, which is telling that as such a living entity is unhappy place, false ego is also not affected. So the illusion of identifying is what is making us suffer. So that is a nice reason that is given. We should always remember this reason. So if I am dreaming, as such nothing is happening to me, but I still suffer because of the dream. Now who is responsible? My dream only. Like I get dreams of writing exam. I don't write exam, but I am suffering. So who is what is the cause of suffering? It's not, suffering is not real in the dream, but still we suffer. Similarly, the soul as such is not suffering, but because it is identifying, it is suffering. In a movie, if something is happening to your favorite character whom you are identifying with, you also feel sad. Oh, this fellow died, this fellow suffered. As such, nothing is happening to us because we identified, that's why we suffer, right? So that is what here my Vidra is telling. Oh, my doubts are removed, now I am clear. Now he wanted to know, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbance or to the conditioned souls have no other basis than the movement of external energy of Lord. So this is the reason. The disturbance is just the movement of external energy. So something is happening, we identify, suffer. But the lowest of fools and who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. So this is a very nice point. But lowest of fools and the transcendentals both are happy. Only person who suffers is in between, like all of us. And then he says, "My dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, I will be able to give up this false idea." So this is the point. So now I am understanding this is misery. How to get out of it? That's why we need a spiritual master. The formula is very simple. Next sloka also same thing. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is able to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable enemy of Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distress. So only hope is our spiritual master for us, no other hope. Persons who are, and why we don't get association of our guru or any saintly person is because of Durapayahi Alpatapasa. So persons whose austerities is meager can hardly obtain the service of pure devotees, progressing on the path back home, back to God. And next is now he is asking about now creation is over. Now we want to know secondary creation, Visarga. After creating the total mental energy, the Mahatattva, thereby manifesting the gigantic universe, universal form with senses and sense organs, Supreme Lord entered within it. He understood that much. The Purusha incarnation lying on causal ocean is called original Purusha in the metal creation, and in his Virata form, in whom all the planets and inhabitants live, he has many legs and hands. So this is he just revising what he has heard. Now he is asking his question. You had told me about Virat Rupa and all. Now, if you kindly explain to me the different powers of the specific divisions. This is the first question. And he says, I think those powers manifest in the form of sons, grandsons, and family members as spread all over the universe in different varieties and species. First, he's asking about the powers. Then he asking, please describe how the leaders of the demigods. So you want to know about the political situation, how it is manifested. Establish of various manus, heads of the heads of the ages, and then manus and their descendants. And then he asked, can you describe how the planets are situated? This is geographical uh, position, planetary systems, and how the political situation, geographical situation. Then he says, okay, now describe the living entities classification. This is how the demographies are there and sensex and demographies. Then he wanted to ask the subhumans, demigods, and kindly describe their generations and subdivisions also. Then he asks, okay, now you tell me about the controllers, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Please describe the incarnations of personality of Godhead also. Because the Purusha avatars, they are the maintainers. They are like Paramatma. But whereas Leela avatars, they come and perform various pastimes and many activities. So he wanted to know. And then it says kindly describe the divisions of orders of human society in terms of symptoms, behavior, characteristics, mental equilibrium, sense control. Also describe the birth of the great sages. So he wanted to know the behavior and characteristics of them. And then the continuation will be what? Explain the different sacrifices and path of mystic power, analytical study, knowledge, and also their respective regulations. And this is little more subtler things he wanted to know. And describe the imperfections and contradictions of faithless atheists, the situations of crossbreeding and movements of living entity in various species to their particular modes and network of work. Then he says, you may have described the non-contradictory cause of religious to economic development. So you want to know dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, and also the different means of livelihood, progress on the path on the law and order mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Also, regulations for offering offerings, oblations to the forefathers, creation of Pitraloka, the time schedule on the planet, stars. Then he is telling, describe the fruity results of charity and penance, digging reservoirs of water. Please describe the situations of person who are away from home and also duty of man in awkward positions. And the controller of all living entity, personality God is father of all religion. And all those who are candidates for religious activities kindly describe how he can be completely satisfied. And then few more questions he says. Those who are spiritual masters are very so that ends the questions. Now again he glorifies Maitreya Muni. That, oh, you are so kind to the needy, you are always kind to the followers. So please describe how many, of course, one last question is, how many dissolutions there are for elements of material nature who survive after the dissolution to serve the Lord while he is asleep? And truths regarding living entities, their identities, their specific values in knowledge of Vedas. How could one have knowledge of devotional service and detachment without the help of such devotees? So he is just telling, because of you only we get all these things. How is it possible otherwise? So now he says, I have put all these questions before you with a view of knowing the past tense of Hari, the Supreme Personality of God. So ultimately, you want to know the past tense of Hari. But he is putting all these questions. Now he says, your friend of also kindly describe them for all those who have lost their vision. So thus the questions. And also another appreciation he gives is your this is nice point. Your questions are all those your answers to all these questions will grant immunity from all material miseries. So this is very important for us. If you want to gain immunity from material miseries, just have to hear the answers of Maitreya. Such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, sacrifices, penances. What is the greatest charity according to him? Giving knowledge. That's what actually Krishna does also. When Arjuna is in misery, Krishna did not tell, oh Arjuna, better is that you go to some temple, do this puja, do this yajna, and perform such and such sacrifices, and you chant such and such mantras to gain some relief from this, and do some abhishekam here, do some puja here, and do some parikrama here. He did not give any such gymnast. He gave knowledge, right? Which is more than what is here. All the charities, sacrifices, and penances. People do sacrifices, people do penance, people do charities. But more important than is giving knowledge. So Krishna gave knowledge to Arjuna, which is the most important thing than all the things, because it gives real immunity. That is also immunity is there, but the highest immunity comes from knowledge, and we know. That's what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Are असोचार अन्न सोचस्तम प्रज्ञावादाम से भाषसे गतासु न गतांसुश्च नान शोचन्ति पंडिता. This is so Arjuna. How come you are, if you have knowledge, why are you unhappy? If you think you are so intelligent, why are you unhappy? So that is the question is asked. We can ask. If we are intelligent, then we will not have to have suffer. So, asocha. So how are you having this misery? So for us also the same thing applies. If I am having knowledge, I will not be miserable. Now comes the answers for this. Now Maitreya is answering. Satasevanīyo bhatapūravamsho yallokapalo bhagavat pradhana babhuviteha jati kirtimala pade pade nutanayasya abhikshnam. The great sage Maitreya said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the King Puru are worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of God. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. So here Maitreya is glorifying Vidura for asking such things because he saw this person is very eager to hear, so he also feel very nice. And this is true also. Like sometime previously it was like We used to feel, oh, there should be big number of people who's attending. But once you understand certain things and you want to help somebody, it does not matter with number. You just want somebody sincere and he should know what we are teaching. That will make so much satisfaction. Like say I learned very nice concepts. Now, even if one person is there, I am explaining to him and he's understanding, that gives so much satisfaction. And we are not interested in impressing. We are interested in making the person understand. And if a person is more eager to know, we will be more enthusiastic to explain. So here the same. Prabhupada writes nice Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya thanked Vidra and praised him by reference to his family glories. Puru dynasty was full of devotees of the personality of God and was therefore glorious because they are not attached to the impersonal Brahman or the localized Paramatma, but are directly attached to Bhagavan, the personality of God. They were worthy to render service to the Lord and his pure devotees. Because Vidura was one of the descendants of that family, naturally engaged in spreading wide the ever new glories of the Lord. Maitreya felt happy to have such glorious company as Vidura. He considered the company of Vidura most desirable because such association can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. This is the point. Of course, not everybody is devotee. In that descendant, there is Dhritarashtra also, Duryodhana also, Dusyasana also. It's not that everybody, but many were there. And this is a very important look. So, Hamdrinam Shulla Sukhaya Dukkham Mahad Katanam Viramaya Tasya Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yadaha Sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhya. He says, let me now begin speaking of the Bhagavat Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in the extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. So, Shulla Sukhaya. So, they are entangled in extreme misery for the sake of little pleasure. Pleasure is very little. Soham Nrinam Shulla Sukhaya Dukkham. And this is always there. We read for so many months and we get the results of our exams. And the happiness is only for maybe 1 week. After that, again, we have to prepare for next exam. Like we cook 2-3 hours, you take cooking, and when we eat, it is only for few minutes. And then again, you have to, if you are cooking or washing, then again so much is there for cooking, so much is there washing, and again you have to prepare for next thing. And same thing, you work very very hard for 1 month, you get salary, and it will be over in few days, and again you have to work hard. So look, that so many things are there in this world, which is the pleasure is very limited, but the payment is so much. A person, man and woman, they get married, they have some pleasure with, they have children are very small, that time there is a pleasure. When the children grows big, na, all the pleasure which we experience in the childhood, only happiness parents get is when children are very small. That is the best time, because you can, they don't have any false ego that time. They will do whatever you say. That's why it is easy. Once they become big, along with that the false ego also grows, and then it becomes very difficult. But they experience some pleasure, but the pain after that, when they become big and the false ego and there is so much, that gives actually so much misery. So like that, every area we can compare, but somehow, then how to come out of it? Yes, Bhagavatam. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and has traditionally comes down in the disciplic section to provide the solution to all the problems of human society. See, all the problems. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, The living entity are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of little bit of material pleasure. They engage in fruitive activities not knowing the implications. Under the false impression that the body is the self and the foolish living entity becomes attached to so many things, thinking they can relate with such material paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continuously, life after life, under the external energy of love. If one comes in contact with both the book Bhagavata and devotee Bhagavata, who knows that the Bhagavatam, what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering man in the world, proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. This is the point. So for us, Bhagavatam is the solution. People, they are suffering, but the amount of happiness they get is sufficient, which will keep them attached to the Nalanda Maharaj. There is sufficient pleasure in this world to make us keep attached to the suffering. That much is there. Like the example is given of a person who is riding in the forest, suddenly slips and falls into a big well, but he's not falling because his legs are and like they are entangled in the roots of a tree which is besides that well, and he started hanging, and there were snakes below in the well, and this tiger is waiting outside, and there are so many mm, bees are there, and the rats are cutting the mm, roots, and because there is a honey bee up, honey bees web is there, so because of the movement, honeybees are coming and biting him, stinging him. But in all this misery, because he's exactly below the honeycomb, a drop of honey is falling on his tongue directly, and he's relishing it. He said, "Wow, such a pleasure." So that is how it is compared. This is the description Bhagavatam. Why such description is there? Because this is how the acharyas and great sages see when they are seeing the suffering living entities, and they, but who are enjoying in this world, they don't feel like that. Unfortunately, they they see so much glamour is there here, and so much of opportunity, and so many varieties of pleasure are there. They say, why to be too pessimistic? Huh? You can be very optimistic of this world, and they keep on trying. And this is the unfortunate situation. There is no need of trying because parabhavastava dabodha jate. Anyway, there is going to be get defeated. So what is the point? You are fighting. You cannot stop fighting, and you can never win. That is the match we are playing. The match is you cannot stop fighting, and we cannot. आसीनं ऊर्ध्यां भगवन्तमाद्यं सङ्कर्षणं देवमकुण्ठसत्त्वं विवित्सवस्तत्त्वमतः परस्य कुमारमुख्यामुनयोऽनुपृच्छन्. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumar, the chief of the boys' saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly as you have about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the supreme form, from Lord Sankarshana, who was seated at the bottom of the universe. So now he is telling that what I am going to tell is actually from the authorized source. This is classification of the statements that the Lord spoke directly, sorry, clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on the Srimad Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. So this is how the system came. And he says, स्वम्येव दिशन्यं बहुमानयन्तं यद्वासुदेवाभिधमामनन्ति प्रत्यग्त्रिताक्षाम्बुजकोशमीढत् उन्मील्यन्तं विबोधयाय. At that time, Lord Sankarsana was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus like eyes and began to speak. So, this is what happened. Sanat Kumar, they went to Sankarshan. Sankarshan was meditating on Vasudeva. He opened his eyes. He wanted to give knowledge. स्वदुन्य उदाधिस्वजातकाल्पये उपस्पृशन्तश्चरणोपधाम पद्मं यद् अर्चयत अहि राजकया सप्रेम नानाबलिवेवराता. The sages came from the highest planet down to the lowest region through the water of Ganges, and therefore the hair on their head was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which was worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of Serpent King when they desired good husbands. So in there is Nagaloka. So Atala Sutala Tala Atala Rasatal Mahatal Patala. In the Patal Loka there are also this Nagaloka where serpents live. And the serpent's daughters they go to Sankarshan. Sankarshan is in white complexion and they worship him that we want good husbands. And Sanat Kumar they also went there. So Ganges water flows directly. So Ganges flows in the three planetary systems. So it starts in Swargaloka, it is called uh, in earth it is called Bhagirathi and Bhogavati, and in heavenly planets it is called I forgot the name. Anyway, so three planetary systems Ganges flows, and the Ganges flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course run from the higher planet systems of the universe down to the lowest. The sages come down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of flowing of water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe. The great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. Nice way of transportation. So people go to Ganga Sagar, where the Ganges enter into the ocean. But actually, it is not just ocean. It is actually going to the lower planetary systems from there, which scientists cannot understand. The statement that their hair was wet indicate that it has been directly moistened by the Ganges, the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu. Whoever touches the water of Ganges on their head surely touches the lotus feet of Lord directly and thus become free from all effects of sinful acts. If after taking a bath in Ganges and been washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. So this is actually the point. People now, so many people are bathing in Ganges. Why they are not getting delivered? Because they continue doing offenses. He gains, but he again takes up sinful activities. His bathe in Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with the dust. मुहुर्गुणन्तो वचसानुरागा शक्लत् प्रदेनाश्च कृतानि तज्ज्ञा किरीटसाहस्रमहि प्रवेक प्रत्योदितोत्तामपना सहस्रम्. The four Kumaras, cited by Sanat Kumar, who all knew the transcendental past tense of Lord, glorified Lord in rhythmic ascent, with selected verse, full of affection and love. At the time, Lord Sankarshan, with his thousands of hoods, began to radiate an effulgent form, the glowing stones on his head. So Sankarshan here is in a serpent form, but he can be in a four-handed form also. So they can manifest themselves. It's not a problem. But here is in a form. The Lord sometimes addressed as Uttama Shloka, which means one who is worshipped by selected words by devotees. Uh, The profusion of such selected words comes from a devotee who is fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of Lord. There are many instances in which even a small boy who was a great devotee of Lord could offer excellent praise in choosest words for glorification of the pastimes of Lord. In other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. So, what is needed? Affection and love. So now, till now, Maitreya did not answer. He's just telling Kumara's when they met Sankarshan. And he's explaining the situation and he's telling how they went, how is Sankarshan looking. He's setting the scene now. प्रोक्तं किलेतद् भगवत्तमेन निवृत्तधर्माभिरताय तेन सनत्कुमाराय सचाह प्रेष्ठ सांख्यायनायांगधृतव्रताय. He says, Lord Sankarsana thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken a vow of renunciation. Samat Kumar also in turn, when inquired by Sankhya Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he has heard from Sankarshan. So this is the Parampara system. Prabhupada said, in devotional service, therefore, two items out of nine, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. Next is Sankyayanana Paramahamsa Mukhyo Vivakshamaano Bhagavad Vibhuti Jagadaso Mad Gurave Navitya Parasharayata Brishaspascha. This says the great sage Sankhayana was the chief among the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that both my spiritual master Parashara and Brihaspati heard me. And this प्रोवाच मुह्यं सदुर्यालु उक्तो मुनिः पुलस्तेन पुराणमध्यम् सोऽहं तवैतत् कथयामि वत्स श्रद्धालवे नित्यमनुव्रताय. The great sage Parasara has often mentioned being so advised by great sage Pulasyad spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. So everybody heard, they all took the responsibility of hearing because they heard in a very responsible way. They are able to disseminate this knowledge. They are to propagate it also in a proper way. So that is very important. So just not hearing, there is a responsibility in that hearing also. They know that we are responsible, so we should hear it properly. Prabhupada writes, the great sage Pulasya is the father of all the demonic descendants. Once upon a time, Parashara began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burned to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. The great sage Vashishta Muni aided the sacrifice and requested Parashara to stop the deadly action. Vasishta is the grandfather of Parashara Muni. So Vasishta's son and all other children were killed because Vishwamitra he actually he um, he did all the mischief and he got him killed. Now Parashara became very upset because when Rakshasa killed, actually one king was possessed with the Rakshasa, and then it's a big story. And then when Parashara he thought Vasishta is my father and he was living. So one day his mother told no, he's not your father, he's grandfather. Then Parashara says, where is my father? Then she says the story. This fellow is killed by this Rakshasa. Then he decided, okay, I am going to finish all the Rakshasas. So now also there is a Yajna Kunda. Sometimes the Rakshasa goes and falls in that. And then he started doing. Then Vasishta comes and says, no, 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 you cannot kill all of them because that type of living entities are also needed. It's a creation of Lord. Why Rakshasas are needed? It is basically Lord is fulfilling the desire of living entities. Different living entities, they have different desires, and based on their desires, Lord provides them different types of bots. Like that. So, and requested Parashara to stop deadly action, and because of Vasishta's position and respect in the community of sages, Parashara could not deny the respect. Parashara, having stopped the sacrifice, Pulasya, the father of demons, appreciated his Brahminical temperament and gave the blessing that in future he would be a great speaker of Vedic literature called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parashara's actions were appreciated by Pulasya because he forgave the demons out of his Brahminical power of forgiveness. Parashara able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered demons are so made that they devour any living creature, any man or animal. But why, on the account, should I withdraw my Brahminical qualifications of forgiveness? So this is what Parashara. As a great speaker of Puranas, Parashara first spoke on Srimad Bhagavad Purana because it is the foremost of all Puranas. If you want to know about the story of Parashara and all, they are there in many Puranas. It is there in Matsya Purana. I think Mahabharata also some this story is there of how Parashara became upset, how his father was killed. I'm just giving if somebody is so eager to know. If somebody is happy with whatever explanation, then as the great speaker of Purana, Parashara first of all spoke on Srimad Bhagavad Purana because it is the foremost of all. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam. He has heard from Parashara and Vidra was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness of his following the instructions received from superiors. Actually, Parashara also spoke Vishnu Puran. Because he spoke Vishnu Puran, Ramanujacharya was so grateful, means he was feeling such a great inspiration Parashamni. He wanted to name one of his disciples as Parashar because he wrote Vishnu Puran. If you see Vishnu Puran, the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, there Krishna Leelas are there. All the Leelas are there in the Vishnu Puran also, except for few things which are talking about dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Otherwise, most of the Vishnu Puran is also like Bhagavad Puran only. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated for time immemorial by the disciplic section even before the time of Vyasadeva. The so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. Actually, what the scientists are telling, the so-called historians, what they calculate, that is right only in one way. Why it is right? because what they calculate is they see the palm leaves on which they are written, and based on that they calculate, oh, these palm leaves are radio dating tested, and they say, yeah, it is 5,000 years old or 10,000 years, whatever. But what they cannot calculate is previously the Vedas are not written. They are transmitted by the oral reception. Just the disciple hears from Guru and then he repeats. And that disciple will repeat and he will repeat. So, like that, there is the process of gaining knowledge was not writings. And what the modern historians or scientists and all, they calculate based on the writings. So that's why this is difference is there, like. But they don't know this method, like sankarshan sorry, Sanat Kumar don't need any notes of Sankarshan's class. He just heard means rest of his life it is part of his life, that's all. When Sanat Kumar is speaking, then Sankhya and Muni also don't need any notes, or he have to recordings and save it so that he can hear later, make notes of it, no need. Then he was reciting, then Brahaspati and Parashara Muni don't need it. They are hearing from Sankhya. But after that, Vyasdev, when he appeared, he understood the condition of Kali Yuga people. He started writing. So when these historians they count, they say, "Oh, this written is from here only, na, this point only." But they don't understand. Previously, it was not needed to write like that. उदाप्लुतं विश्वइदं तदासीत् यन्निध्यामिलीत दृण्यनीयमालयत् अहीन्द्रतल्पे दिशयान एक कृष्णसातं रतुनीरुहा. When the three worlds were submerged in the water, Garbhodaksha Vishnu was alone lying on his bedsheet. The great snake Ananta, although Garbhodaksha Vishnu appeared to be in slumber in his own internal potency, free from the actions of external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Now starts the description. So now we want to hear about secondary creation. So till now we heard primary creation. So we want to hear about secondary creations, or Visarga starts from where? It starts from Garbhodaksha Vishnu in the causal version. Because he creates Brahma and Brahma creates the Brahma develops secondary creation. So we need to know about Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And how is he? He is in he appeared to be in slumber in his own internal potency. That is called Yoga Nidra. Slumber, but free from actions of external energy. It's another thing. We are not free from the actions of external energy. We are affected by external. If it is very hot, now summer, heat wave is going on. So whole day it is so miserable. So it is we are affected. External energy, activities, what is happening in the world around us, here, there. So many things that affect. But Lord did not close. And he says that, so here the description is given. So Sonta Sharire Ripita Bhuta Sukshma Kalatmika Saktim Udhirayana Uvasa Tasmin Salile Padesvai Etanalodharuni Ruddha Viryaha. Maitreya is telling, just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in his self invigorated energy called Kala. Now, this is another nice point it is made. Strength of fire within fuel wood. The Lord remained within water of dissolution, submerged all living entities. So, all the living entities in their subtle form, they are there in Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And he is laying on Kala. You'll see what Prabhupada is telling you. After the three worlds, upper, lower, and middle planet system merged into the water of dissolution, the living entities of all the three worlds remained in their subtle bodies by dint of energy called Kala. In this dissolution, the gross bodies become unmanifested, but the subtle bodies exist just like the water of material creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely bound up, as in the case in the full dissolution of material world. So, this is only at the end of day of Brahma. It's not at the end of life of Brahma like that. So, at the end of day of Brahma also, everything goes into dissolution, but they enter into Garbhodaksha Vishnu. But at the end of life of Brahma, all the living enter into Mahavishnu. It's like that. चतुर्युगानां च सहस्रम् अर्पितो सहस्र अप्सौ स्वप्न योधीरितस्य स्वक्षत्या कालाक्षया साधितकर्मतन्त्रो लोकान् अपीतान् दृशमे ददृशे स्वदेहा. The Lord lie down on the thousand cycles of four yugas in his internal potency, and by the external energy he appeared to be sleeping in the water. When the living entity is coming out for further development of their futu activities, executed by energy called Kalashakti, he saw his transcendental body is bluish. So now the description of Lord's form is there. The Lord lay down on this thousand cycle four yugas in his internal potency. Prabhupada says in the Vishnu Puran, the Kala Shakti is maintained in avidya. The symptoms of influence of Kala Shakti is that one has to work in the material world for fruitive results. Fruitive workers are described in Bhagavad Gita as moodas or fools. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefits within perpetual bondage. Shulla Sukhaya Dukkham. One thinks himself very clever with throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children and to achieve these temporary benefits, he takes the risk of all kinds of sinful activities without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. And proposes such an impetus of activities for fruitive results is made possible by dictation of external energy of Lord called Kala Shakti. तस्यार्थसूक्ष्माभिनिविष्टदृष्टैरन्तर्गतोऽर्थो रजसा तनीया गुणेन कालानुगतेन विद्ध सूक्ष्म्स्तदाभियते नाभिश्रेष्ठा. The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated a metal mode of passion. Thus, the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. This is how the Brahma is born. So, what happened? The Lord's attention was fixed on the subtle subject matter of creation. Lord's glance was fixed on the subtle subject matter of creation. What happened? He wanted to create, so he started thinking about it. So he started thinking about his subtle energy. As soon as he thought about it, Immediately there is a sprout from his abdomen, pierced, the subtle form of creation pierced. सपत्नकोशः सहसोदितस्य कालेन कर्मा प्रतिबोधनेन स्वरोचिषा तत्सलिलं विशालं विद्योदयन् अर्क इवात्मयोनि. I just read this. Piercing to the Lord's abdomen, the sum total form of fruitive activities of living entities takes shape of the bud of lotus flower, generated from the personality of Vishnu, and by his superior and supreme will, he illuminates everything like sun, and he drives up vast waters of devastation. Okay, we completed quite so many things. Thank you all very much. We will end here. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We'll continue tomorrow.